Hey, hello folks. Hi. So, if you follow Indian news even casually, you may have heard the letters FCRA, usually attached to a headline about some NGO getting its license cancelled or revoked. Um, Maybe with one side oftentimes yelling crackdown, or let's say the other side yelling foreign funded grants, stuff like that. But almost nobody really, either explains to you, or as a consumer we don't really put in the effort to actually understand what some of these um, you know these top level headlines really do even mean. Like, what's the crux of the matter here? What's the really, I mean, what's really essential to the amendment itself, or the bill itself, that we should be very well, to some extent, aware about, so almost nobody really explains what the law is, what is it for, what is it really catering to, what's genuinely changing right now with the new amendment that it is right at the cusp of being presented. So that's what I want to do. I want to just basically try to go through a framework of sorts. It isn't really very structured, this presentation of sorts, but you can make up your own mind, in terms of how you feel about the package of material that I will be pretty much going through. So the first thing I obviously want to review is something that is coming from the Ministry of Home Affairs itself. So this is basically, what FCRA really is. So, it stands for Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, something that was born in 1976. And it was actually, presented, or it was born during the emergency era, actually. And it was kind of like rewritten like more strictly in 2010. I remember when I was a kid, there used to be oftentimes, a lot of briefs where they would talk about FCRA in the news, but obviously back then it didn't make any sense. Now the whole, to me as a kid back then, but now it's a lot more like contextually and politically relevant as well. A lot of nuances to it that have to be thought about. So a bunch of those things pretty much. So its purpose is pretty simple to the state. Regulate foreign money that is coming into India for, could be for social reasons, could be for religious reasons, could be for educational reasons, could be for political contributions, political work, charity, so on and so forth. And the intent is, so basically, to have some guardrails so as to ensure that foreign funding does not quietly influence um, you know um, some of these critical pillars of our democracy directly. So it could be politics, it could be elections, it could be social welfare, it could be stuff like religious conversions. There's a lot of it. So there's a whole sect of knowledge around some of those things. So this isn't unique to India, by the way. First thing, like, just to get it off the bat. This isn't something that is unique to India. In fact, the US also have its own version of FCRA. It's called FARA, I believe. So most of the more evolved, mature democracies out there in the world have some version of these regulatory acts in place. So it's based on a very like sovereign principle. The idea is to basically ensure that your country is able to actually regulate or vet or audit the amount of or the quality or the intent of these donations, or this money that is flowing into the economy pretty much. So let's look at the certificate mechanism. So the act states that organizations desiring to receive foreign contributions must register with central government and obtain a certificate, which must be renewed every 5 years. Is the act that provides the certificate may be cancelled by the central government or surrendered by the organization if it does not wish to further receive use of foreign contribution. So that's how it works mechanically, pretty much. So if an organization wants to receive foreign funds, it needs an FCRA certificate, as simple as that. So at the surface of it, I mean that's just like basic semantics around having some of these guardrails, and that certificate has to be renewed every 5 years, as simple as that. The government obviously carries the rights to actually cancel those or revoke those certifications for very many reasons. So if let's say your org doesn't do any meaningful work for 2 years straight, I believe, you know, some of the criterion are already like listed here. Or if the money goes to any prohibited parties or candidates, like political parties, election candidates, judges, public servants, all of that. So that actually is already the existing system. So it has been tightened like repeatedly in 2016, 2018, and 2020 as well. So we can look at the existing set of enhancements or amendments that are like going to be published. So if you look at some of the existing amendment rules, um, what's actually new in 2026, because this is the part actually worth understanding, is that earlier amendments actually primarily regulated the flow of money. This amendment actually goes a step further. So it is going to target the assets that are built from that money. Let's put it that way. So it'll create a new body itself called as a designated authority. So if a particular NGO's FCRA license is like either surrendered or cancelled or revoked, or it just let's say lapses without renewal in place, the foreign contributions and the assets created from those funds can vest in that authority. So in plain terms, um, the state or the government itself actually takes control of those assets. So this designated authority actually becomes the primary stakeholder in the assets that were created as a result of those investments. So let me give you like both sides honestly, because this is where it gets debated, I feel. The government's case is such that it's a real one. Over the years, a lot of organizations genuinely have misused foreign funds. Some organizations have done that. In the case where let's say when there was a license cancelled, what happened to the building or the money was like legally, could be like legally murky, and questionable. So this amendment actually tries to close that ambiguity, uh, pretty much. So it's kind of like a national security framework. It's run fully by the Home Ministry, not the Finance Ministry, which tells you how the state sees it. So it sees it as a major guardrail around ensuring that principles of national security and sovereignty sort of stay robust and rigid. By no means does it seem like it is an attempt to actually stop funds from coming in. In fact, the economics of pulling funds in has been made a lot more liberal, so to speak. So not long back, last month, FIIs were given tax rebates, or like I think pretty much full tax concessions on investing in bonds in India. So a lot of those economics has started to make sense in the sense of, in terms of making the whole flow of funds a little more liberal. But so the first thing is, then that's the state's aspect of it. The like on the other side, like on the criticism front of FCRA, right? I think a fair-minded or a reasonable person should take at least two of these points seriously. The first one is the vetting of the assets, I would say, doesn't cleanly separate the foreign funded part of an asset versus the domestically funded part of an asset. So, a lot of critics tend to argue that, let's say, a hospital or a school, which is built maybe perhaps partly on Indian donations, could get swept under a licensing lapse, things of that sort, right? So those demarcations or those separations need to be defined a lot better, is what I understand from some of the stuff that like I have gone through. A second point is a lot of the fine print, let's say timelines, what's provisional versus what's permanent, is left to be decided later on by the executive rules that will be in place, rather than being written into the law right now. So I believe there was a Congress MP as well who had some procedural objections to it, in the line that, along the lines that too much power is being delegated to the executives, not enough defined by the parliament. So some of those are like more like legitimate you know, criticisms of how the amendment is currently structured. So, all in all, that's basically my understanding of the amendment in place. And what I wanted to share was actually the guardrails or the framework around this whole process. I mean, obviously you're free to form your own opinion. The intent of FCRA to me seems like it's very sound. It's something that I've been following for quite some time now. It's been a couple of years, and I really do feel that as a sovereign nation, we absolutely have the right to ensure that the foreign money isn't shaping politics or public life. It goes across all party lines, all factions, all groups whatsoever. And this is not authoritarian at all. It's more of a statecraft. So, and like if folks out there scream that this is like very draconian, at the very crux of it, I feel they are just being dishonest about how every major democracy operates. Democracies that you probably grew up idolizing or romanticizing, whatever you wanna call it, have a version of this regulation in place. There's no real base to arguments that completely just stand against the introduction of such an amendment without presenting factual or logical reasons. Is what I meant. But definitely the intent is right. Doesn't mean like every provision is beyond question. We should obviously question the provisions. But I feel the one debate that is worth having is not whether FCRA should exist. By all means, it should, and like it damn well should exist in the best possible manner possible, out there. So that definitely should be the case. But the debate should be more about asset vesting. I feel, asset vesting mechanisms, and the discretion that sits with some of these governing bodies in identifying the local contributions from the foreign contributions, and ensuring that there's like the beneficiaries, the genuine beneficiaries of such asset investments, and money that is flowing in do not get impacted. So those two positions are not contradictory at all. That knowing these two positions would actually make you a lot more informed. So that was the whole point of this um, video, that I just wanted to share and go through a couple of reads to help ourselves get educated on what FCRA really is. It's coming at us, and I feel like as an informed citizen, it is our slightly more than our responsibility even to be well read about some of these topics before forming an opinion, and just being pretty emotive or expressive about what they really mean. It's all it's a fundamental right for us to actually ask good questions and criticize, but we should be asking questions on the right things. So the more we read, the more we know. I will pin these articles in the post, but if you have any discussions you would want to do, if you want to reach out for with questions, if you have ideas for me, any potential arguments of that sort, please feel free to reach out. So that was the whole point. But yeah, I hope this helped. Thanks.